Elected NAPA President Dr. Ramji Ghimire, Distinguished University Professor and World Food Laureate Dr. Ratan Lal, eminent scholars and invited panelists Dr. Roshan Bajracharya, Dr. Gyami Shrestha, and Dr. Rajan Ghimire, all respected dignitaries, NAPA executives, and all attendees. We are at the outset of NAPA webinar 41, which is very special for the fact that Dr. Ratan Lal, distinguished university professor and World Food Laureate, will be delivering a keynote speech on sustainable soil management and agriculture as part of the solution to adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Following the webinar, we'll have a panel discussion with highly accomplished scholars, Dr. Roshan Bajracharya, Dr. Gyami Shrestha, and Dr. Rajan Ghimire. Before proceeding with the webinar program, let's reflect on the devastating floods and landslides happening in Nepal, which killed at least 170 people with additional 42 people missing. In this difficult moment, let's observe a minute of silence to mourn the loss of lives. Let's start. Thank you very much. Now let's resume our webinar program. Please kindly note that the AI companion has been enabled during the webinar to capture all deliberations in the webinar. I'd like to request NAPA General Secretary Dr. Ananta Acharya to enable. He has done already. Thank you so much. And facilitate participants' admission and take care of overall Zoom functionality during the webinar. Similarly, I request Sabine Pokhrel to monitor the attendance, take important notes, and communicate with General Secretary Dr. Acharya for participant admission during the webinar. Similarly, I'd like to request Dr. Bharat Shrestha play the keynote speech record sent by Dr. Ratan Lal. And similarly, Dr. Subodh Adhikari and Shabina Tripathi are requested to facilitate the post-panel discussion question answers. Now, I'd like to request the NAPA President, Dr. Ramji Ghimire, to welcome the webinar speaker and panelists and all attendees. President Dr. Ghimire, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khanal, for your nice introduction and some housekeeping matters. Valued NAPA members, advisory board members, esteemed speaker, panelists, and honored participants. Good morning to those joining from Nepal and other part of Asia and Australia, and good evening to those in the Americas. Soil serves as the critical foundation for terrestrial life, providing essential nutrients, supporting plant growth, and playing a major role in various ecological cycles. Healthy soil is fundamental to sustain ecosystems, agriculture, and human civilization. Degradation of soil through processes like erosion, deforestation, and unsustainable farming practices can lead to decreased productivity, loss of biodiversity, and exacerbated climate change, which is why soil conservation and management are critical for sustainable future. This said, we are delighted to discuss sustainable soil management and agriculture as a part of the solution to adaptation and mitigation of climate change, agriculture development in Nepal, a transdisciplinary perspective. And we are eager to hear from Dr. Ratan Lal, who is a professor at the Ohio State University and also the World Food Prize laureate. And then hear from comment from the panelists, Dr. Roshan Bhadracharya, Dr. Gami Shrestha, and Dr. Rajan Ghimire, their perspective on the topics. I'd like to welcome you all and thank the keynote speaker and panelists for the talk and for the comment, and also for the insight, and also the webinar committee led by Dr. Nityananda Khanal and other colleagues, and for their excellent coordination and hosting this webinar. With this short note, I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar, and I would like to thank you again and hope you'll find this today's webinar and panel discussion both insightful and inspiring. And thank you and welcome you all. Nitirasa, you are muted.
So I would like to request that to make the session more interactive, we encourage participants to raise hands and ask questions directly or type their questions in the chat. And you're free to use your language of your choice, uh, English or Nepali. And with this, I'd like to request Dr. Bharat Shrestha to introduce the webinar's keynote speaker, distinguished university professor Dr. Ratan Lal, and then play the recorded speech by Lal. Dr. Shrestha, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Khanal. It is my privilege to introduce Professor Lal. My name is Bharat Shrestha, and I'm a biology study lead at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. It was fortunate to be a mm, made to work in Dr. Lal's lab back in 2005. That connection led me to contact Dr. Lal and uh, invite in this special webinar series. Professor Ratan Lal, a distinguished university professor of the soil science and director of the CFAES Ratan Lal Center for Carbon Management and Sequestration at the Ohio State University. Dr. Lal is also an adjunct professor to the University of Iceland and the Indian Agricultural Institute, IARI of India. He received a BSc from Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana in 1963, MS from Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi in India, 1965, and a PhD degree from the Ohio State University, Columbus, Ohio in 1968. Dr. Lal served as a senior research fellow with the University of Sydney, Australia in 1968 to 69, a soil physicist at IITA, Ibadan, Nigeria in 1970 to 1987, and is a professor of soil science of Ohio State University since 1987 to date. Dr. Lal has co-authored or authored numerous journal articles and books and book chapters that surpassed 1,000 marks already in referred journal and more than 575 book chapters and more than 100 books. He was included in the Thomson Reuters list of the world's most influential scientific minds in 2016 and is among the cleverest, highly cited researchers in the agriculture from 2020 to 2022. He was ranked #1 globally and in the US among agricultural scientists, plant scientists, and agronomists of the world by research.com in last year. Dr. Lal has received honorarious causa degree from universities in Europe, USA, and Asia. The Medal of Honor from UIMP Sander, Spain in 2018. The Distinguished Service Medal of IUSS 2018, and is a fellow of the 5 professional societies. Dr. Lal has mentored 125 graduates, 15 undergraduate honor students, and 188 visiting scholars from around the world. It is based on last year's data. He has also visited most of the country. Last year, this number was 102 already. Dr. Lal has provided leadership in numerous agriculture institutions, including IUSS, Soil Science Society of America, IICA, and was the member of Distinguished UN Food Security Summit Science Committee. Currently, Dr. Lal serves as a member of the BioFat USDA and chair of the Scientific Advisory Board for the Strategic Environment Research and Development Program in the Department of Defense. Dr. Lal is a laureate of the GCHERA World Agriculture Prize in 2018, Glinka World Soil Prize 2018, Japan Prize 2019, US Awasti IFFCO Prize 2019, RL Global Food Innovation Award 2020, World Food Prize 2020, India's Padma Shri Award 2021, the Mahatma Gandhi Award for Environment Protection 2022, and 2024 Gulbenkian Prize for Humanity from Portugal, which was presented by Dr. Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of the Germany. Of course, this doesn't all justify my limited information about Dr. Lal. It is great honor to have his lecture today. I will play the recording now, and then we can discuss after that. Let me share his record.
I want to thank Dr. Bharat Shrestha and his team at NAPA in inviting me to present a seminar entitled Sustainable Soil Management in Agriculture as a part of the solution to adaptation mitigation of climate change. This is a very timely topic of global significance. In this regard, let's look at a soil. It is a living and dynamic resource, which is the essence of all terrestrial life. And soil health refers specifically to its biological properties in relation to its capacity to provide critical ecosystem services for nature and other living beings, including humans. And the notable ecosystem services provision by soil have examples such as clean air, pure water, scenic landscapes, high productivity, high net biodiversity, and including all the essential critical services for human and nature, which depend on soil health. Therefore, defining soil health as a capacity to sustain multiple ecosystem services for human well-being and nature through coupled cycling with other elements, carbon cycles along with water, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and others elements. We are facing globally a peak soil, similar to peak mineral resources like peak oil or peak energy or peak fuel or peak minerals. There could be and should be a peak soil concept. And what it means is that the optimum soil requirement for per capita human use is but 0.25 hectare per person. In many densely populated countries of the world, such as those in South Asia and other parts of the world, per capita land has declined to as much as 0.05 hectare per person. And this creates problems such as land grabs, such as civil unrest, such as soil refugees. And the total number of refugees at present is about 120 million and increasing. Therefore, there is indeed a peak soil, endangered soil, extinct soil, and soil which are no longer exist, but they did exist at some time in the history. The extractive farming practices, which does not follow the law of return, the law of return as put forward by Sir Albert Howard in the 1940s, indicates that whatever we take from soil must be returned to the same place in one form or the other. When we do not follow that law, it's extractive farming. Extractive farming can lead to depletion of soil organic carbon and nutrients, decline in soil structure, loss of soil resilience, decline in ecosystem function and services, loss of soil biodiversity, disruption of key processes, and leading eventually to hunger, malnutrition, political unrest, civil strife, war, and insecurity. And at present, as I mentioned before, more than 120 million refugees. And that number, as I said, because of the war in several parts of the world, whether Sudan or Horn of Africa or Eastern Europe or Middle East, the number of refugees is indeed more than 120 million. And soil degradation exacerbates this problem, which increases the refugees, and refugees, of course, lead to more soil degradation. Therefore, we have to carefully think how to make agriculture a solution in terms of the green revolution for the 21st century, rather than input variety fertilizer irrigation based, as was the case in South Asia and elsewhere for the 21st century. The new revolution must be soil-based, soil-centric, based on soil health and soil resilience, ecosystem-based. You're looking at the eco-efficiency of inputs, of producing more from less, and knowledge-based, both science and management-driven. Indeed, the way food is produced and consumed affects the health of soil, plants, animal, people, ecosystem, and the planet. And that's the One Health concept, and which states, by again going back to Sir Albert Howard and Eve Balfour, both of them living in the 1920s in Indore, India, central India, Indore. The Indore compost pit was indeed designed by Sir Albert Howard, who stated in his presidential address to the India National Science Academy that the health of soil, plants, animal, and people is interconnected. This was the address of his speech to the Science Academy of India in 1918. But we have expanded this concept to include health of environment and health of planetary processes. And this is what we call the One Health concept. Therefore, in addition to the socioeconomic factors, food security research must also address environmental and resource management issues. And the question is how to make agriculture as a part of the solution toward those issues. Going back to Lady Eve Balfour, contemporary of Sir Herbert Howard, she indeed thought that agriculture should be a part of medical service. Because if a nation's health depends on the way its food is grown, then agriculture must be looked as one of the health services, in fact, the primary health service. So you can see the thinking goes back to more than 100 years. In fact, in Ayurveda, it says when food is good, medicine is of no need. And when food is poor, medicine is of no use. And that goes back to the original how diet is so important. That brings us to the topic of soil health and what are the factors affecting it. Soil health affected by physical properties such as type, texture, soil organic carbon content, structure, water characteristics, chemical properties such as pH, clay minerals, CEC, electrical conductivity, nutrient reserves, biological properties, activity and species diversity within the soil, and of course energy source and organic matter content, and microclimatic condition, temperature, precipitation, water balance, energy balance, and interaction among them. These factors interact strongly as determinant factor of soil health. So the basic concept of managing soil health mean maintaining a continuous vegetative cover on the soil surface, alive and or detritus. Alive is better if it can be managed. Minimal soil disturbance, physical, chemical, biological, and ecological. Minimal disturbance, complex farming cropping system with high plant biodiversity, high live root density, deep and prolific root system, and mimicking natural biodiversity by growing species adapted to the season within the agroecosystem. That brings us to the concept, how do you manage soil health? It means protect and restore soil organic matter content or recarbonize biosphere, enhance soil biodiversity, live in harmony with nature rather than against nature, observe the law of return, which I already explained to you, and treat soil like a bank account, which means you cannot withdraw from a bank more than what you put into it. That goes back to the law of return. You cannot withdraw from a bank more than what you put in. Similarly, you cannot take out of soil more than what you deposit back into the soil without degrading its quality. Some of the examples include regenerative agriculture, digital agriculture, artificial intelligence, biofortification of crops, soil, water, air, energy nexus, building new soil, urban soil-less farming system. The idea is to create a drawdown of CO2 from the atmosphere while we also grow food and draw other ecosystem services from soil. The topic that I want to focus on, making agriculture as a part of the solution to mitigation and adaptation of climate change. Since 95% of food consumed is grown on soil, sustainable agriculture and soil management has to be part of the solution to address global issues of the 21st century, such as climate change, water scarcity, loss of biodiversity, along with food and nutrition security, and many other ecosystem services. That brings us to the topic of nature positive agriculture. We are now talking about nature, how to make agriculture nature positive. Because of its large environmental footprint, there's a strong and urgent need for developing innovative farming systems which reconcile the need to produce food with the necessity to restore the environment. And this is the key word, reconcile the need to produce food with the necessity to restore the environment. And nature positive practices include the basic concept which I outlined before: protecting, managing, and restoring soil, strengthening biodiversity, improving water quality and renewability, adopting negative emission farming. Many times we hear zero emission. Zero emission applied to industry, such as motor production, such as machinery production, such as electronic production. They can be zero emission. Agriculture is the only industry which must always be negative emission. That means what we are putting into the land, soil, and trees is more than what we are removing from it. That's what negative emission means. Reducing input of chemical, using biostimulants and organic amendments, promoting a biocircular economy, supporting the One Health concept, and of course using precision agriculture. And some of the examples include conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture, agroecology, agroforestry, integration of crops with trees and livestock, practice the positive soil ecosystem carbon budget, and the concept of CNPK rather than NPK. C would be added in front of NPK through adoption of integrated soil fertility management, not just chemical fertilizer. Balanced use of plant nutrients, drip fertigation, digital agriculture and precision farming, and of course, artificial intelligence. Negative emission agriculture needs special mention, which means reducing carbon emission from farm operations and sequestering carbon in terrestrial ecosystem, including soil, trees, wetland, mine land, degraded land, and urban lands, all of those put together. In this context, regenerative agriculture is critical. Regenerative agriculture is an idea which is modern, combining the conventional chemical-based agriculture with conventional organic agriculture, using the best of the two and come up with the ideal combination, which we like to call regenerative agriculture, which is an idea, it's a concept, it's a strategy, it's an approach. And this approach is inspired by eco-innovation, powered by non-carbon energy, driven by a circular economy and green infrastructure, and supported by the recarbonization of the terrestrial biosphere as the bedrock of sustainable development. This part is very critical, how to recarbonize the terrestrial biosphere, soil and vegetation, which have lost carbon since the beginning of agriculture, and soil organic matter content, which is essential to soil health, is the elixir of life. That's the recipe of the life. Elixir is the Arabic word el-aksir, elixir, recipe of life. And what the soil-centric approach? Regenerative agriculture is indeed soil-centric rather than seed-centric, because it's based on this truism that health of soil, plants, animal, people, and the environment is one and indivisible, the One Health concept. Therefore, that is why it is a soil-centric approach. Regenerative agriculture is a system-based complex farming techniques that the need for producing adequate and nutritious food with the necessity of restoring the environment and making farming a solution to environmental issue. In this context, RA encompasses a wide range of farming and grazing practices aimed at restoration and sustainable management of soil health through sequestration of soil organic carbon in humid climate, but also soil inorganic carbon in arid and semi-arid climates. And RA has many practices. There is no one-size-fits-all practice for diverse soil environments. RA comprises system-based conservation agriculture, which includes no-till farming in conjunction with residue mulching, cover cropping, integrated nutrient and pest management, complex rotation, and integration of crops with trees and livestock. So system-based conservation is a very good example of regenerative agriculture, but it's only one example. there are others as well. Managing soil organic carbon through regenerative agriculture also include the concept of eco-intensification, which means continuous soil cover, no soil disturbance, integrated nutrient management, and complex rotation of producing more from less. The idea is to store soil organic carbon so that we produce more from less land, less water, less chemical, less fertilizer, less emission of greenhouse gases. In practice, what it means is agronomic yield and productivity is optimal and sustainable, not always maximum. We are aiming at optimum for a long period of time, sustainable for a long period of time. Input of chemical is supplemental as and when needed, not the only way to maintain soil fertility. And the resource use should be such that we can produce more per unit of land, water, and energy, and return some land and water back to nature. Global warming should be addressed in a way that we can eliminate the emission of greenhouse gases from soil, create a negative carbon budget, and of course the profit should be optimal over a long period of time, and soil degradation neutrality is the most important concept, how to maintain soil degradation neutrality. And we adopt nutrition sensitive agriculture and making farming integral to restoring and enhancing the environment. That is the topic of this lecture. And incentivizing farmer through payment for ecosystem services based on societal value of carbon. And of course, legally adopting a Soil Health Act at a national, provincial, district, and community level, Soil Health Act. The strategy of producing more from less means less land, less water, less fertilizer and pesticide, less energy, less emission, so that land is set aside for nature. Then we have a concept of CNPK. That means carbon-based fertilization. As the carbon content in soil goes up, the need for NPK decreases over time because of the increase in use efficiency of the fertilizers. And that's the concept CNPK. More soils in terms of basic concept of soil management. We want to have a plants contrast to the original Green Revolution plant, which were low biomass, low root system, more grains, more harvest index. We want plant which has a deep prolific root system, more above ground biomass, plants which can communicate with the manager through several exudates, such as root exudates, soluble and polymeric compounds, rhizo deposits, root litter input, depth distribution of root input greater, absorptive root versus transportive roots. So root system, which eventually increases soil organic carbon content and leads to bioturbation, more earthworm activity, more termite, ants, millipedes, centipedes. That's called bioturbation. And of course, more microbial biomass. In another way, if we look at the ecosystem services, based on soil as a basis, the global soil resource and carbon pool as the most basic of natural resources, as a base of the pyramid, then the four sides of the pyramid will include key ecosystem services such as food and nutrition security, climate change adaptation mitigation, water renewal and adaptability, rather than land. That is another option to explain that. And of course, biodiversity. For this pyramid of ecosystem services to be stable, the contact point on the top of the pyramid where all the four walls meet together must be held more stable, cemented together, and that cementation is the policy. Political stability and peace, willpower, political willpower, governance, good governance. Soil health indeed is more basic to all ecosystem services, including water quality and renewability, climate change, mitigation, adaptation, stabilization, food quantity and quality, above ground and below ground biodiversity. It is the engine of economic development. So making agriculture a part of the solution would require transformative changes, such as from soil erosion to conservation agriculture, from eutrophication to soil cover all the time, soil organ carbon depletion to have more living and do root system, from greenhouse gas emission to integrate crops with trees and livestock so they are lesser emission, and from conventional agriculture to regenerative farming. That will be a transformation to make agriculture as a part of the solution. In other words, the transformative strategies mean changing 5Ds to 5R. And 5Ds currently used in conventional system are based on deplete, degrade, destroy, discard, and dominate, and take land from nature. And we want to transform this to make it a solution to climate change into 5R, which is reduce, reuse, recycle, regenerate, and restore, and return land back to nature. Return some land back to nature. And I'll come that some, how much in a moment. The action needed in many parts of Africa, for example, improving the fertilizer use efficiency, improving soil health, because Africa is one region where the agriculture has lagged behind the population demand, where these things are specifically needed. Land area under irrigation need to be included more, and of course the recarbonization, including soil restoration as an integral component of any national and international program, and protecting carbon in soil, forests, and wet. So this means no additional land clearance, no more deforestation, have vertical growth in crop yield and agronomic productivity in Africa and elsewhere in the world, rather than horizontal expansion. Protection of wild soils indeed require three basic strategies: stewardship, that means philosophy, spiritual concept, and so forth, economic incentive, and legal approaches. And we need all those three. Stewardship is a very important concept, ancient culture. Hinduism, Buddhism in South Asia have been promoting this, along with modern religion, including Jainism, Sikhism, and of course, Christianity and Islam, all have the same common concept of soil stewardship, and care must be embedded in every fruit and vegetable eaten, in each grain ground into the bread consumed, in every cup of water used, in every breath of air inhaled, and in every scenic landscape cherished. All religions teach this stewardship concept, and we should promote that, which does mean in a way whether the price of food should be reflected in relation to the degradation being caused when you do not observe these rules. The legal part is rights of soil. Just as the universal rights of human, rights of animals, there must also be rights of soil, because soil is a living entity. Nature should have right, because nature is a living entity. At the essence of all life, soils have rights to be protected, restored, thrive, and managed judiciously. Prime agricultural land and ecologically sensitive ecoregion must be protected. And that's a part of the Soil Health Act. Cooperation with private sector is very critical, especially to achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which means end poverty, goal number 2, end hunger, goal number 6, water quality and renewability, goal number 3, climate action, and goal number 15, life on land. They all directly and indirectly depend on sustainable soil management. And achieving those goals and making agriculture a part of the solution, cooperation with the private sector, with the policymakers, with academicians, with international organization, with land manager is very, very, very critical. Soil Health Act is needed in every country. In the United States, for example, we have a Clean Air Act of 67. We have a Clean Water Act of 72. As of now, we do not have a Healthy Soil Act. Exactly in that language, we do not have. And that is needed to achieve agricultural sustainability and to protect rights of soil. In this regard, farming carbon is the economic incentive. Remember, we talked about spiritual, we talked about legal, we talked about economic part, which is the farming carbon, which means growing soil carbon as a farm commodity to create specifically another income stream for farmers. That's the economic incentive through payments for ecosystem services. Indeed, growing carbon as a new crop, like we grow corn or soybean or poultry or cows, dairy or beef, etc., growing carbon in soil and trees as a crop which can bring financial value to the farmer. How much financial value? $50 per credit. We had calculated this about $35 per credit in 2010. In 2024, it's $50 per credit. And if we did this, the technical potential of carbon sequestration is about 2.5 petagram of carbon per year. I recently read a report from China where they come to the same value, 2.5 petagram carbon per year, if we can adopt conservation agriculture on all soils of the world. So the estimate of the world soil is about 2.5 petagram, which is 25% of the total fossil fuel emission at present, which is 10 petagram per year, 2.5 out of 10. If we were to combine soil carbon sequestration potential for 80 years from 2020 to 2100, through these transformative agricultural practices, soils can sequester additionally 178 petagram, and vegetation can sequester additionally 155 petagram. Put together, land carbon sequestration potential of 333 petagram translates into drawdown of atmospheric CO2 of 157 parts per million of CO2. Therefore, if we can find alternative to fossil fuel in the near future, and we adopt transformative agriculture, we just discussed negative emission farming, nature positive agriculture, conservation agriculture, regenerative agriculture, keeping temperature within 2 degrees centigrade is still possible through the combination of all practices that we talk about, in addition to having use of non-fossil energy like solar, nuclear, hydro, geo, wind, and other. In this regard, I should say there are 10 tenets of transformative practices. Translate science into action, produce more from less, return land and water to nature, adopt soil-centric green revolution, strengthen public-private partnership, promote carbon farming at $50 per credit, harness land-based carbon sinks, make agriculture as a part of the solution, implement policies which are pro-nature, pro-agriculture, and pro-farmer, and finally, practice nutrition-sensitive agriculture. How do you meet the food demand by 2050? In fact, the world produces enough food already to feed 10 billion people. We produce 3.2 billion tons of food grain. However, 1.2 billion out of 3.2 reach no stomach, human or animal. They are wasted. Therefore, how do you achieve food and nutrition security by 2030 and beyond? Number one, reduce waste. Make sure everything that is produced is judiciously used and not wasted. 30 to 50% is very high rate of wastage. We must increase access to food by addressing poverty, inequality, war, and political instability. War. We have serious issue of war these days in Europe, in Middle East, in Horn of Africa, and in other parts of the world, which is causing the problem of food insecurity. Improving distribution, increasing use of pulses and plant-based diet. And this is very important for NAPA and South Asia in general. As South Asian country people become more affluent, they have a tendency or urge to change from their traditional vegetarian diet to more animal-based diets, such as in the Western society. I must remind you, traditional plant-based diet of South Asia is much better in health for people and the planet. And this idea of changing to animal-based food with increasing affluent is not very good for nature and for human health. We must accept personal responsibility of not taking things for granted. And we must increase productivity from existing land, restore degraded land, increase biological nitrogen fixation by legumes, and use agro-ecosystem in a sustainable intensification way or eco-intensification way so that we can produce more from less. So returning some land back to nature by 2100 is very, very important to making agriculture a solution. By 2100, we must return half of the current land under agriculture, which is more than 5 billion hectares globally, back to nature. By reducing food waste, narrowing the crop yield gap, eating healthy diet, which means plant-based diet, promoting urban farming along with a soil-less production system. And now comes the possibility of a timetable on a global scale that could be used as an example. Not that this is the final thing, but it's an example of what we could do. For example, fertilizer use. At the moment, it's 200 million tons. By improving the efficiency, which is hardly 30% in South Asia, including Nepal, maybe even less for nitrogen, we could improve the efficiency and reduce the total consumption of fertilizer. Globally, from 200 million ton to 50 million ton. Globally, efficiency of fertilizer use and water use from 20 to 30% to 60, 70, 80%. And use the fertilizer as a medicine, rather supplement, rather than as a wholesome, indiscriminate use. We have 350 million hectares under cropland. The cropland area can be increased to 500 million hectares. The total cropland area, we have 1.5 billion hectares. If we increase productivity from existing land, the cropland area should be decreased to about half. The crop yield in Africa can be easily tripled and quadrupled. Crop yield in South Asia, including India, can be doubled, and in Nepal probably tripled. Therefore, increase productivity from existing land and save some land for nature. Conservation agriculture, or 750 million hectares of cropland, must be under conservation agriculture. That's how they'll sequester carbon, 2.5 billion tons of our carbon sequestration. The grazing land globally, 3.7 billion hectares. We do need some grazing land. We do need livestock as a essential component of complex farming system, but 3.7 billion hectares, no. 1.5 billion hectares should be plenty if the livestock is used in a judicious way. Water use for irrigation, which is now estimated at 70% of total water use by humanity, estimated to be 3,150 kilometer cube. If we adopt drip fertigation, drip irrigation along with the fertilizer, the irrigation area could be increased from 350 to 500 million hectares, but water use could be reduced to 1/3 and return additional water also back to nature. And yet, by improving soil health and following the C and PK concept, following the concept of regenerative agriculture, productivity could be doubled on a global scale from 4 tons per hectare to 8 tons of grains per hectare per year. And this is the philosophy that we want to propose and recommend and follow. Lest you forget, I think the foundation of trust to your life is healthy soil, because healthy soil equal to healthy diet, equal to healthy people, healthy ecosystem, and healthy planetary processes. Dr. Shrestha and his team, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I wish you all the best in your NAPA workshop webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.